I'm Shalina Tobin, aka Posh Nosh Girl. Today I'm joined by one of Ireland's greatest culinary exports, Kenneth Culhane. Kenneth grew up on his family farm in the stunning county of Kerry, but winning a fabled Roux Scholarship catapulted him into the limelight. In 2019, he was rewarded with a Michelin star at the fabulous Dysart restaurant in Petersham, which is just southwest of London. Ken, thank you so much for giving us your time today. We're finally opening up next week. How have you been over the year and how are you feeling now about opening?
Thank you very much, Tina. It's a pleasure to join this format. Yeah, it's really exciting for us, really being able to open up after the past year of bits starting and closures, and like we all can imagine, we've all been put under extreme pressures in various ways and forms, really. And it's become some of a Sisyphean kind of task, really, I suppose, ahead of us to try to navigate this economic problem that we've had and the environmental problems that we had over the past year. But great now that we have that kind of opening upon us next week. And we're really busy for the past number of weeks now, just getting everything ready really for that reopening on Monday, which is brilliant. We're so happy.
Amazing. And are you doing a complete fit out? Are you guys like renovating the whole place?
We did on the end of the first lockdown. We did little parts of the kitchen, and we made. Well, I suppose we sat down and we really tried to discuss about what we're going to do, how we're going to give people, the space that's required with the new regulations. But anyway, for us, that's what we were setting out in the first instance anyway. We wanted people to come to the restaurant. We wanted people to enjoy the space that they have here. We wanted to really, I suppose, look at them embracing what's around us, the beauty of nature and all these things around us. And to do that, we need to make the environment really comfortable for them. And so it has, in a way, with the first lockdown, helped us to kind of reevaluate that way of thinking. And we've kind of extended the restaurant by having downstairs and upstairs now, which has given everyone that bit more space anyway between the tables, which is great. And I think, in a sense, it adds to the whole environment and the experience that we're trying to create. So from that aspect, it's been a positive.
Oh, great!
Yeah,
well,
definitely, yeah.
Sounds amazing. And what are you doing on your final weekend before you actually start? Have you got any plans?
Yeah, I exactly. Well, I spent some time with the kids, and I think that's one of the greatest positives really that's come out of the past year, and that and I'm sure lots of people have seen that it's kind of put us towards more of those family values and being able to spend that extra time that under normal circumstances, as a chef and people in the hospitality industry all know very well that it's time is very precious, especially with family, and you don't usually get a lot of time because you're so busy in running the operations of the business. So that aspect is great, and I will rejoice that last week of spending time together as a family, and I think that's been very nice to spend time with the two boys who are plenty of energy to keep me busy, definitely, for sure. Yeah.
So, Kenneth, I know that your love for food developed at a really young age. You have the quintessential romantic story of growing up on your family farm. Could you paint a picture for us? What was it like for you growing up?
Yeah, look, absolutely. The location was wonderful. We were by very close to the Atlantic coastline as well. The weather wasn't always fabulous, I have to say. It was pretty cold a lot of the time. But yeah, I think if I look at it growing up, cooking wasn't really something I was kind of planning really to do or to kind of be a part of. Really, it was just the understanding of nature through the land and seeing my dad and the family, operate and work the farm that, kind of took inspiration from that. And that way of living, really, I suppose it's we have to nurture and we have to look after our animals and everything on the farm if we want that for future generations, really, I suppose, as such. And it was an instilling really of doing things properly. I think a strong work ethic that's always required. That was certainly something I, grew up on doing, especially if we have to, do making silage, or, we used to have to, go to the bog to do, certain things with heating for the house. And, there was all these activities, I suppose, growing up that instilled that sense of the land and the importance of the land, towards getting through that next year, really, I suppose. So that was really the key to it. And I see a lot of those kind of same values that I use now within looking at suppliers, looking at, the foragers we use, looking at same people. And you kind of want to find that, real sense of passion and belief within them, that they love what they do and they really enjoy what they do. And my dad, really, that was what he was completely, engrossed by being a farmer and doing it properly and raising the animals in the correct way. And a lot of that kind of, I think, came true in me, I suppose, as a kid growing up, having calves inside the house when they were sick and all this, to nurture them. Yeah, I know, one of those things when I was a young kid, every now and again, it didn't happen that much, but every now and again, during the winter period, maybe one of the calves wouldn't be feeling so well, and my dad would bring it in and build a little house by the fireplace for us. Sure, my mum wasn't too happy about that, but there you go. Sometimes these things, we used to do growing up. So yeah, it's, in a sense, really, it's just doing things in the proper way, really, in the proper fashion, really, to treating the farm and the animals with the respect that they deserve. So it's there for you, and you work in tandem and harmony with nature, really. I suppose that's really, kind of the core, I suppose, of what I took from that time on growing up and by the beautiful coastal area as well. I spent a lot of time on the beaches and things like that, which was lovely.
And had you actually started cooking when you were young yourself?
It's one of those things where I kind of, a little bit, but not greatly, really. I was very much, I think, when I came to a point where I was in my early teens, I got really into kind of sports and football and playing soccer and various sports and things like that, and cycling. And so that was really my kind of niche for quite a while. And but in saying that, but I always enjoyed the warmth, I suppose, that my mum and my nan would bring to the house when they would cook something, or the activity around that harvest period where we'd have men on the farm dealing with various things that with my dad, and then us having to cook meals and to do all these things. Yes, I used to help out a little bit, but I don't think I've really had a kind of gearing towards the focus. I suppose sometimes you grow up in an environment and it shapes you, and you don't really see that until afterwards, really. The importance of it, really, I suppose, the importance of that way of thinking, the importance of that culture, and that it's what makes you as a person, really, I suppose. And it wasn't until later in life that I kind of decided that actually this is really what I want to do,
So when was that? Because you actually went on to study science at college at first, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Well, the thing was, I suppose, my mum and dad wanted me to go to university and to study something.
As all parents do.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of to work. And yeah, no, it's true. It's that kind of. But at the time, you're just kind of guessing your way through life, really, a little bit. You're kind of like 17, 18, and there's things that you like that you do in school and college. And science was something that I quite enjoyed working with and doing with, and it was something that I felt it was one of my stronger attributes that I was able to do, I suppose. And so then I kind of looked at various pharmaceutical degrees and certain things. So then I went and I did an applied science degree, kind of, and it was during that period, I suppose, that I realized, and seeing, sometimes it's part of the whole thing, and after a couple of years you realize maybe this isn't really kind of what I'm really, really passionate about as a person. And it wasn't really until I left science and I got a job working. Well, it took a while for me to be able to get in there, but I started working at the Shelbourne Hotel in Dublin, which I suppose is a bit like the Savoy Hotel of Ireland, really. I suppose a very historic building, historic hotel, first time ever seeing, you know, even ice creams being made and all these things and these beautiful pastry pieces and all that. And I think from that point, I realized that after the first year in there, I was like, this is it. So I really see, I see the artistry, I see the science, I see the passion, I see the, you know, the beautiful representations of nature, you know. I think more at the start, it was kind of like just that kind of energy of the team and everything that kind of, for the first couple of years, that I said, wow, this is something I really want to, you know, get into and I suppose become better at, really, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And was this with Chef Guillaume Lebrun?
This was after, it was, when I was at the Shelburne, I met a chef that, like, at that time, I didn't know anything about Michelin stars, or kind of really didn't even know like how properly the kitchens were orchestrated, or it's kind of, or the hierarchy that's involved in the kitchen structure to make it work and all these things. Like that was like really at the very start of me understanding. But I did meet a chef there who worked in the fine dining restaurants at the Shelburne, and he was an older chef, and he was just head and shoulders above everybody else. His organization, his flavors, his you know, discipline, everything stood out with the chef. And I just kind of bit by bit got his confidence, and eventually started, you know, after 6 or 7 months, started to kind of work with him a little bit, and then just get to talk to him about, you know, well, you know, basically, why are you better than everybody else, kind of, you know. In my head, kind of, I want to know and to understand this. And he just explained to me he'd worked in all these wonderful Michelin star restaurants and all these places. And at the time, like, I didn't know what Michelin star meant, what the accreditation was, that I didn't know it was seen as the best kind of, you know, restaurants around. And it was only bit by that, about that time, then I started kind of understanding a bit more, him telling me about different restaurants. And after a period of time, I just said to him, I'd like to get into one of these restaurants. How would I go about doing that? And he explained to me that if you wish to do that, the best restaurant in Ireland to do that is Restaurant Patrick Guibos, who he had worked in for a number of years previously. So yeah, that was where I met Guillaume, who's the head chef, and
Right.
and spent some. So after the Shelburne, I moved on to Patrick Guibos. Yeah.
And how did you find, I mean, that was a 2 Michelin star restaurant. So how did you
Yeah.
find the contrast between the two?
Yeah, it was a big step up.
Right.
Like, it's quite unimaginable, really, kind of to see, like, in my mind now, looking back at this and thinking about, you know, what exactly it was like. But it was definitely, for me, like, unquestionably, that kind of big step. Like, I knew all of a sudden this is a big leap to anything I've ever done before. The kitchen at that time was very much run in French as well. You know, the service would have been run in French. Probably 80% of the staff were French based. So it was a very, you know, typical, I suppose, high-end Michelin star French gastronomic restaurants. Like, I suppose, like, as people talking like temples now, I suppose, as such of gastronomy. But me at the time not understanding that, really just knowing that this is a wonderful place where wonderful food, the produce was definitely the first thing that I noticed. That was the incredible step up, that I just never tasted, like, tomatoes or peaches or, you know, even mushrooms that were coming in at that time, anything like that in my life. So it was, yeah, it really was like an eye opener, really, I suppose, to the world of gastronomy, really, I suppose, as such. And yeah.
And Chef Lebrun, I mean, he played a really big role in your life in terms of mentorship as well, because I believe he was the one who organized for you to move on to Pastel Vivier.
Yeah, well, during the period I was at Patrick Guibos with Guillaume, I asked him to be able to go work in France for a period. Right. And yes, that was like in the Lower Valley. I ended up where actually Guillaume is from Petersham, which is very close to Amboise, where the Choiseul with Pastel Vivier was at that time. And yeah, it was just that for me then again was kind of seeing, I suppose, all those ingredients that we previously, like, we used to get in the restaurant previous, now actually seeing them in the marketplace. And like, with Pascal twice a week. We'd well, not every week I was able to do this, but like the vast majority of the weeks anyway, I'd try and get in the van with him early in the morning. At maybe he'd go to the markets at like 6:30, 7 in the morning or something like that, sometimes a bit earlier. And you know, a couple of times every month I try to do that and go to these markets where you had produce coming from all over the Loire. And it was unique in that, you know, you could see an agricultural belonging, I suppose, as such, that he would have all the farmers in this market area, because he was the 2-star chef of the region, you know, tell him, you got to come back in 1 week's time, 2 weeks' time, this is not quite ready. So they were always giving him that best product at that best time, the most perfect moments, you know, in the season, really. And that's kind of something that I've really, I suppose, you know, embellished really, I suppose, as a chef moving forward, is that kind of, you know, thinking of, wow, you know, using something at its optimum, at its beauty, at its perfect, you know. that's really, that's something I saw amazingly there.
And I mean, you mentioned working, you know, local market people, working closely with the farmers as well. I mean, that must have transported you back to your childhood memories with your dad on the farm.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Yeah, that was like, you know, I think that's the beauty, I suppose, of food and of dining and the life within that. Really, I suppose it interconnects cultures, it interconnects you as a person. You know, you've got, you know, it's an amazing thing really to go from, you know, nature to culture in cooking, and definitely, you know, working there. Even though growing up, you know, the food, like it's a different kind of level of standard, I suppose, as such, when you're in the world of multi-Michelin star restaurants. But I think the basic premise is the same. It's the same feeling, the same, you know, standards, the same understanding, and the same logic, and wanting to, you know, work with your best and your best intensity for nature and the beauty of nature, really.
Yeah. And during you went on to do a degree in culinary arts, and you were granted the David Gumbleton Scholarship. How did that come about?
Well, it's at the time when I finished my degree, I decided to go back to France for a period, and it was just after about 2 or 3 weeks I was in France. My mom contacted me to say that the college had awarded you a student of the year award, and I was like, oh, that's great, excellent. And then it encompassed this David Gumbleton scholarship, basically. And David Gumbleton was Tetsuo Wakuda's head chef. He was his head chef for, I think, over a decade. He helped him establish the restaurant in Sydney. He put him on the map. I think Tetsuo has got great fondness towards David Gumbleton. And unfortunately, I think it was 2004, he passed away. And to honour that, and to honour his life really as such, he created a scholarship in Ireland rewarding the student within the culinary arts degree every year. So it was a wonderful opportunity for me, because it just springboarded me into a kitchen in Sydney all of a sudden. And working in a kitchen at that time as well. It was fifth, I think I was fourth best on the Sal Pellegrino list. So very, very difficult to actually get into at that time, for sure. It was a wonderful experience, and an amazing chef to work with, and completely different, like classical French backing as such, with the knowledge that he learned with Tony Wilson, and then his Japanese heritage as well coming through in a lot of the dishes, the simplicity, the purity of flavors, the precision, all these amazing. So he was definitely one of the most, I suppose, inspirational chefs I've worked for sure, without question.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of research on him, and as you mentioned, 4th best restaurant in the world. And, you know, his Japanese way of cooking, which includes a classical French technique. So what an amazing opportunity that you had to go out and work with him. Yeah,
it was wonderful. It really, and you know, it just kind of personifies this whole industry really, when you get into it and you really become part of it and passionate about it. There's some wonderful things that can happen, you know, and I think looking back on that now, it's you know, you don't really realize it at the time, but when you reflect on it years gone by afterwards, you realize, wow, yeah, that was something that was such an important part of my learning as well, I think, really, because to kind of turn, food culture and to turn ways of running a kitchen on its head a little bit for me, and then to go down there and to see his perspective of how he ran his team, how he respected everybody, how he had, the utmost of respect for the culture and everything that he was doing was, it was definitely impressionable for sure.
So you've gone from Tetsuya, which is the fourth best restaurant in the world, to a very corporate kitchen in Canary Wharf. Two very different styles. Talk to us about how that happened.
Well, the great thing about, I suppose, this industry is that you've got a great diversity in the what you can do, I suppose, really, as such. And what I learned from a very early age, I suppose, for me in the kitchen, that I had to study the craft of cooking, to be able to really move forward, really. And it's I spent time initially studying what it is to be a chef and what makes up everything about being a chef, really. And I think going to Canary Wharf was an opportunity for me as well to kind of look at what I'd studied in my degree through management and various management levels and corporate hierarchies and things like that. And I just saw it as, even though, the food that we were cooking was equally the same as any of the Michelin star restaurants I worked in, but it was just in the corporate environment, really. And you had the corporate umbrella of management, of training, of nurturing, of ticking all the boxes, really, I suppose. And that was kind of my first real delve into that corporate way of looking at business, really, I suppose.
Yeah. And so, you're quite the one for scholarships, because you got your second with the Roux scholarship. True. While you were working there.
Well, the thing is, I suppose, as with anything in life, you've got to want to get better all the time, really. And I think to be perfectly honest, the Roux Scholarship is the first ever and the only ever chef competition I've entered. And I just felt like at that point I was cooking probably, professionally for almost 8 years, 9 years. And I just felt it was a great opportunity here in the UK to just see where I was at, kind of gauge where I was at. It kind of initially started out as that, really. And then the more I looked into it, the more I realized, wow, this is really special prize to win. It's, from the point of view of like meeting all these people like Heston Blumenthal and Gary Rhodes and all the Roux family, for the first time, people that I'd previously just seen in books and read about, and then all of a sudden they're just standing there in front of you, critiquing and analyzing your foods, and wonderfully nice people. And it's one of those things where the activity of being part of that in itself is a great achievement and something that really betters you as a person, really. I really thoroughly enjoyed that whole process, really, of involvement in the Roux Scholarship, and now looking back on it and seeing what actually the Roux Scholarship does for people and the industry, it's quite incredible, really, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely provides amazing experience to young chefs out there. And you chose to do your stage at Jean Georges in New York. Why did you choose that place? And it's actually one of my favorite restaurants in London, Georges.
Is this?
Or not?
Okay, excellent.
Yeah,
wonderful.
But why did you choose there?
To be perfectly honest, I'd set out, really, I suppose, I'm saying I'm going to go to New York. New York is synonymous as the big city. It's got the Irish connection as well. Like historically, a lot of Irish people used to go to New York. But outside of that as well, I wanted now to kind of see another city. I've done London for X amount of time at that point, and I just want to see another city, what it was like to work in. And everybody talks about New York as this fantastic, full of energy city that it is. And I just felt, looking at all the chefs and for me where I kind of worked, especially with Tetsuya and the Asian style of influence that he had in his cooking, who really kind of changed my understanding, really, as such, of the use of another culture in with the base and classical cooking. And the one person that stood out for me massively at the time, even though I knew very little about Jean-Georges, and it was him. And the more I kind of researched and looked at the fact that he spent time in Thailand, obviously he trained with Paul Bocuse and all these famous great chefs in France, and then ended up working in Thailand for a period, and then bringing that knowledge that he had gained to New York, and then becoming a successful, multi-star business owner, really, as such. And all of these kind of things came together, and for me, I just felt that if I was going to work with somebody, he seems like a really, really interesting person to work with, and to see how he does his businesses, really. Yeah.
And could you share with us one standout memory from that time, like a moment that you really cherish?
From the time, it's one of those things that the biggest moments, really, I suppose, are those things where you get to embrace. But that's the great thing with the Roux Scholarship, really, that you're not coming in just as a chef stagiaire or chef, proposition of working. With the Roux Scholarship, you come in, you're really part of the team. And I think the embracing, really, that they had towards me entering the kitchen was incredible. I thought that was certainly something that I'd not seen that much before. And I think the American way of thinking, anyway, within teams, is that everyone works for each other, and they really embrace the passions and the drives of what Jean-Georges was all about. And the professionalism. I suppose if I'm going to say one standout, I was trying to think of one there for a while. There was one morning, because the prep got done downstairs, and upstairs was the finishing kitchen for the performance, I suppose. The theatre of service and the theatre of just putting things together. Because we used to have guests that would come and look on the outsides of the windows, and then come up at the pass and talk to us and stuff. And there was one morning, and it was like 7 in the morning, and I went upstairs, and there was someone alongside Jean-Georges, and I was like, I know that person, but I didn't think much of it, and I just went on, and I started running. And I came back up because who is that person? And she was like this very glamorous lady alongside Jean-Georges, and I realized it's Shania Twain. So there was Jean-Georges cooking with Shania Twain, and she came in to work with us for that day in the kitchen. So that was quite a moment. Which I knew nothing about.
Did she sing for you guys?
No, she didn't, but she was very, very nice. She was very, very, very nice. But she spent the day with us upstairs, and we just showed her various things. And the thing with Jean-Georges, he's brilliant like that. He really embraces the people that enjoy his food. He's a great person to understand culture. He understands the importance of the team, the importance of the spirit of us all together enjoying food. And I think that was one of the great things I learned massively from working with Jean-Georges, is his great appreciation for everything that's fine about our wonderful industry that's hospitality.
Yeah. And in the past, you've spoken about a dinner that you had in New York with Dan Barber.
Yeah, that was another wonderful dinner that we'd. It was one of those things where I knew little, I suppose, at the time about. I'd heard stories about Dan Barber and what he was doing in the farm, but I'd never really, thought too much about it. And then we went there through the Roux Scholarship, and he, again, one of those wonderful moments where he takes his time out to show us through all the processes of how, he completely breaking down monocultural kind of ways of thinking about, how flavor is paramount through the wonderful application of growing in nature. And, for us to sit down then afterwards and have, I think it was like a 20-course tasting menu while he explained and talked through all the dishes, and
wow.
and it gave us an insight. Yeah, that was a pretty eye-opening experience for all of us, really. I think, it was one of those cherished moments, really, I think, for sure.
Yeah. And Michelin standard of cooking has been your ambition since you were very, very young. Why has it been so important? And what did Michelin mean to you back then, and what does it mean to you now?
Well, starting out, really, it was, I suppose, for me, that first Michelin restaurant that I knew about was Patrick Guibo, and which was a 2-star restaurant, a historic restaurant in Ireland that had been building for generations on that foundation of French gastronomy, and it really, like, it instilled in me a level of perfection, I suppose, of doing things to their absolute best, I suppose. And at that time, I was more like, I suppose Michelin is up there with that perfectionism, and that's that top of the market, I suppose, experience. But at the time, I didn't really, it wasn't Michelin I was looking to go to. I was just looking to go to the best restaurant, and to work in the best restaurant in Ireland was really that was my ambition and goal. And it so happened to be a starred restaurant. But since that, then obviously I certainly used Michelin as a benchmark of quality really within restaurants, and it's one of those things where it was a dream, I suppose, back then, starting out, that I one day love to own a restaurant or be part of a restaurant that accomplishes something to this standard, or this level of standards. And so I'm really delighted that we did this 2 years ago at the Dysart. So
yeah, I'm delighted for you.
Quite a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And
no, absolutely.
Tell us about the moment that you found out. Were you expecting it?
Well, no, that's the thing. They don't let you know or tell you or anything. But it was one of those things where I got the email, and I got the email literally 5 minutes before service was about to start. And obviously you're told not to mention or to say anything. But it was one of those things where that service was it started out on a kind of very much oh my goodness, what is this? And so I had to go straight to Barney and who's the restaurant manager here, and to notify him that I've just been given an email from Michelin to say that that we'd like to come to the ceremony. So we didn't know. Yes, we just had to get to the ceremony, I suppose. But no, it was a wonderful experience, a wonderful time, a wonderful emotion for everybody. Brilliant for the team here who have we been building here over the years, and the Taylor family here who've invested so much time into this business, and it was a great reward for everybody and everyone's efforts that we were able to achieve that standard. And I think that's the key to this really is us all working together as that team, and enjoying the love and passion that comes with the experience of food. That's it.
So in 2012, you joined the Dysart in Petersham, owned by the Taylor family. You've been there for 10 years now. It must feel like home to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. I think, initially when I came out by this part of London, straight away there was an initial impression that, wow, I didn't even know about Petersham really as such at that time, but there was an affiliation with me growing up in the countryside here, because that's exactly what it's like here, really. That wonderful Richmond Park as well, right in front of us, which is a great place to go and enjoy, when you've got free time. And we've got Ham House as well, that's just very close to us, so you can do the lovely river walk all the ways up to the restaurant in a nice summer's day. There's loads of wonderful history here, we like. Us working together just seemed right at the time, and still seems right to this day. Yeah.
Amazing. And for anyone who hasn't been, what is the offering at Dysart? What kind of food do you have?
It's what I suppose the food really, I'd like to think of it really as that kind of journey, I suppose, through the various experiences I've had and the various experiences we've had here at the Dysart together as a collective team. I think, yes, there's a certain amount of the training that I've worked with is part of the kind of base and format of what we do. But I think there's a lot of, stories that have come out of me working here through different dishes. It's a little bit like when we went to Japan a couple of years, it's going on 4 or 5 years ago now, and I came back and we decided to create this dish about mackerel, and looking at the kind of basic, I suppose, premise of what I learned while I was in Japan, like that kanzu aesthetic of simplistic beauty, I suppose, and the promotion of just looking at something from its perfection through simplicity. And I created a dish, mackerel dish around this, celebration of that journey we had in Japan. And fortunately enough, it's kind of become a story here now, and we've it's a dish that I can't take off the menu because so many people have requested and asked and speak about it, and that's nice. I think for here, that's why over time, dishes and various stories we have being gathered through our experiences working as a team together, and I think that now creates that experience that is the dysart, and it's a wonderful thing. And we're always obviously looking at developing and seeing what we need to do here, and slightly tweaking things that we feel that will enhance the experience for the guests ultimately. Yeah.
Sounds amazing. And do you have a dish that's inspired by the Roux family as well? What is that? What is that?
Yeah, that would be I suppose the mackerel dish, really, because that was them that organised it was a Roux family that organised that Japanese trip for us. Right. So the thing is, there's, when you look at the world of foods and cooking, creativity can spark from multiple avenues, really, as such. And you look at nature, you look at the people that you're surrounded by, you look at a lot of the guys that work here and stuff, sometimes they come in and they'll talk about something that might spark an idea or turn into something amazing. But one of the interesting things we used to do, which obviously because of COVID, which has kind of hampered the whole process, is that we used to do a lot of wine dinners over the course of the calendar of the year, I suppose. And that was quite an exciting kind of brainstorm, really, as such. We sit down, analyze the wines, look at the structures of them, and kind of talk about everyone's independent experience of that. And then me and Barney would kind of talk about dishes and ideas, and it spurs the guys into thinking about certain things as well. You end up going down a route sometimes that you might not have explored yourself, and these things, I think, are quite amazing, really. Then we can come together as a team to orchestrate and create this experience, and everyone's got that self and sense of ownership over the whole experience, really. And I think that's really a part of what we do here. I think really it's a very important aspect.
Yeah, and you really enjoy mixing cultures and different styles of food, and your wife is Mauritian as well. I heard that you guys make a pretty mean biryani at home.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I think that's my wife that does that, really. I'm not sure I can be proclaimed as an expert at biryani. I think if I look at how culturally how food is, I take inspiration from that. I'm like the wonderful Indian dishes that her family would create, or the Chinese, a lot of the Chinese dishes, which are amazing. I don't really understand how they various. I understand flavors and textures, and they can inspire me through that. But I think I suppose it's a different kind of cultural experience to be eating out in some of these kind of Indian and Chinese restaurants. And I definitely take experience and inspiration from these cultures. I'm not saying I'm an expert in any single one, but I think that's an important attribute to kind of the creativity of what we do, really, and kind of understanding the structure of flavor through those experiences, which is very important. And I think a lot of the times, I would like to say that I would like to focus more on those kind of experiences for the guests, and making those experiences personal for them. It's a bit like the mackerel dish, which it's I take great joy in like a lot of Japanese and Asian people coming in eating that dish, remarking that is the chef Japanese, and I'm like, well, no, but wow, that really touches me then, because I feel like I understand a little bit of their culture, I suppose, as such, and I think that for me that's the exciting part of cooking, really. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at any of these cuisines, but I like to get the sense of belonging and the feeling from these cultures, and use them to create an experience of our own, really, I suppose. Yeah.
Amazing. And speaking of bringing in different inspiration of different cultures, the Taylor family has introduced you to the world of classical music, which is another dimension of hospitality. And there's something that you've said in the past, which is Music is a wonderful example of something that is in this world, but not of this world, comparable to
Yeah,
fine gastronomic experiences. So I guess, what you're articulating is sounds can be made into beautiful music, local produce can be made into beautiful dishes, and it's human
exactly.
skill that really enables that transformation.
Absolutely. It's a bit like that, you're taking it from, that raw ingredient from nature, and then you're transforming it into something culturally, that
Mhm.
for me, that's a very exciting attribute to be able to do. It's almost a form of linguistics as such. You speak through the food, you talk through the food, and musicians do the same thing, really, and I've like really, before I started here, my understanding of classical music was very little, really. So I'm very thankful that the family, who have got an extended knowledge of a lot of the great classics, and we had pre-COVID and lockdown, a lot of these amazing soloists and chamber artists that had been at Carnegie Hall and Wigmore and all these places. And like sometimes I just like come out and I just like maybe spend a few moments just listening to their, what they're doing, their setup, and it's kind of the same, professionalism, the same vigor, the same intensity of feeling, I suppose, that you could get from a high energy topping kitchen, and I can definitely see the parallels of cooking and music, and the importance of the both, really, to us as beings, as nurturing our souls, as making us, better human beings, really, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so many, like there's an endless number of variations as well. I mean, two chefs can take the same ingredients and make completely
Yeah.
different dishes based on their
Yeah.
backgrounds and experiences, just like artists and composers. Has
Yeah.
classical
Absolutely.
music influenced the way that you work in a kitchen?
Yeah. Well, I suppose, yeah, that's kind of another step, really, I suppose, where I think like the classical music can really, as such, it's that feeling, I suppose. It can definitely um, make that feeling of sensing of belonging to something, of a beauty and a structure within something, and I think that's the key core thing I would take from the kitchen as well. That's the exact same thing. We look at the beauty of nature, and we want to protect that. We have to protect that. That's our job, and that's part of who we are as chefs. But also creating an experience, and to create something that is rejoiceful, and the guests can sit down and thoroughly enjoy, and feel like that they've had an experience, really, from the whole sensory experience, really, both from the dining and the external and everything, and all the experiences that they have while they're here. So yeah, no, that's yeah. That's it.
And does music have a role to play in your mental health?
Yeah, of course. I think isn't music is a paramount part of us as beings. I think, and if you look at it, it sets a tone for our feelings, our emotions, where we are, what time, even what parts of our life we are at, the stages we're developing, and like we can all look at music as we could. I can certainly do over my career as well. Scents and smells play the same key roles in my life that, say, certain parts of music would as well. And I kind of associate. It's a bit like when I was at the Dysart. I was just here. I think the first year I was here, and our gardener brought in herbs, an array of herbs, and there was one herb, and the smell of it just brought me back to my nan's, like just like that, visually. I couldn't understand, because I didn't know what the trees were she had planted at the time, but actually it's Santolina, it's cotton lavender. So my nan used to have loads of this cotton lavender growing on the farm. I never knew what it was, never understood it, but then our forager and our gardener brought it in to meet the smell, and then I was like transported straight away back to my nan's. Quite an emotional experience, and I think the exact same thing happens with music. We have moments with people that we enjoy and we love and we cherish, and music is an important, integral part of that kind of being as such. So it's lovely to put those two things together, the music and the food, really. Yeah. But unfortunately, with COVID, we've not been able to have any concerts. So it's something hopefully we'll be able to look at again in the future.
Yeah, I
You know,
know.
it's
I heard that you guys have quite a few of those concerts. It is,
yeah,
something that I look forward to in the future. Hopefully,
yeah.
it'll happen again soon. Was it a monthly thing or weekly?
Yeah, it was weekly. It was every Sunday. Oh no, it was monthly. It was once every Sunday. We used
Once
to do
every
a
Sunday.
concert. Yeah, but because of with the restrictions and everything, that means that we no longer can. And we've also slightly changed the restaurant as well to give people more space and to give them, that sense of, having their own area within the restaurant. So in doing so, we had to close off certain areas, and that kind of, in a sense, makes it a little bit more difficult to actually have the concerts. But it's something I'm sure we will develop and look at in the future, for sure.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
look forward to it. And
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
you've also set up the UK chapter of the Jean Restaurateurs Europe, which really focuses on quality and the
Yeah.
origins of produce. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's predominantly an organization that was based in France, starting out first. And the premise of was looking at, independent restaurants, family run, like that was the kind of core premise of it. One-off, independence, individual, passion driven, looking at high end quality as ingredients. A lot of them are these beautiful locations dotted around Europe on the sides of the Alps and places like this. And realistically, what it is a network really of these independent smaller restaurants. They're usually one-star, multi-star kind of restaurants, and they share the same vision and the same passion to create this wonderful experience for their guests. It's something we were asked to join 2 years ago, and it's something we work with through their sponsors, and we sometimes get guests and people that come from other parts of Europe that might know the JRE, and we also certainly get some chefs sometimes from other JRE members that come and spend some time with us here at the Dysart.
Right. And you're
So
also, and I don't know where you
that's
get
it.
time to do all of this, but you're also a
What's
member
that?
of Slow Food Alliance.
Yeah, that was a number of years ago as well. They had come to talk to me. I suppose it just seemed like that natural kind of progression really for us, that we were like constantly in that mold really of looking at how we eat and the importance of slow food, which really is going back to when I grew up on a farm. Really, that's the whole premise of slow food really, of looking after the animals in the correct manner, completely, I suppose, constantly being in that kind of reflective process and being that reflective practitioner through everything you do really. But yeah, no, that's another wonderful group of an organization that we like to cherish, definitely, for sure.
And
Yeah.
being a member, what does it involve being a member? I mean, do you educate others about it? Do you what does it involve,
Yeah.
your role?
Well, yeah, they obviously, a lot of these things have changed because of what's happened over the past year. But yeah, it was certainly, they used to have events and we'd get together, and a lot of it as well is just, you're the ambassador, you're somebody that's, showing, I suppose, the way as such really, of the importance of this way of thinking and this kind of, way of looking after nature really. I suppose we have to look after the land now for future generations, and we have to be really, careful on how we kind of instigate on what we do. And I think as chefs, that's paramount, because you're the influence of like what you ask from your farmers is what they would provide you. So, but I think sometimes it's one of those things where you've got to put yourself in their shoes as well, and you've got to see, well, this is what nature gives to you at this time, and this is the reason behind it. And I think when I was in France, I definitely got to see that, where, okay, we're not using strawberries today because they're not quite available, or they're not at their best. We'll use them next week, and we'll use them for 2 weeks, and that's it. And then we'll go on to something else. It's not like, okay, I've got this for indefinite. It was never anything like that. I think there was always that perfect kind of synergy between the producers and the farmers and the chef really and such. And I think for me, that's a very important part as well of the whole process, because I have, like, it's integral that I look at these things and these ingredients from nature and do the best with them. But if I'm going to be demanding certain things in certain shapes and certain ways, then you transform maybe their way of thinking too much, and it's detrimental sometimes to actually the end product and fundamentally to nature, really. So that's kind of the whole slow food movement is, I suppose, that thought process behind all this, and it's been a part of that whole cycle that we have within this world of food that we have. And if we want to treasure it for the foreseeable future, we have to be reflective and think about each and every step and every action that we do, and the effect that action has on the whole chain, really, I suppose. So,
yeah. And we're opening up next week. What are your future plans or ambitions for your own future?
Well, yeah, it's one of those things of where, the star was like another chapter, really. I think I can just kind of look at it as that, really, a chapter both for myself and a chapter from the perspective of the business here at the Dysart. And unfortunately, with what's happened in the past year, that we didn't have long enough to really see where we were going to go next from that, because we had only 4 months of business. So I very much like to, really embrace that, that year we won the star again, and just get going on that, really, and and really keep building what we're doing here. And we've, like, over the past year, have done that through the improvements we made in the restaurants, to give people more space, to like getting more bespoke teas, looking at coffee in more detail, obviously analysing wine menus, and me as well, looking at my supply chain to see, is there more people we can look here that we can work with, make it more interesting for the offering within the menus and all these things. So very much so, like developing that family feel of quality that we offer here at the Dysart. That's the plan, definitely, moving forward, and keeping that uniqueness. It's very easy sometimes to think of, let's expand and to move forward. And I think for me, like, I like the word integrity, really, and I think for me as a chef and what I want to do at that top end of cooking and to respect this, I feel like this is where I am, and I have to stay in this, and to be in this kitchen, and to be part of this team, and to be part of developing this from within, really, and not being someone outside, and that's what I really enjoy. I like being the inside and involved in all the activities and in all the aspects of the whole business, really, I suppose. So.
Well, Ken, it's been super lovely chatting with you. I've got one last question for you, though. Tell me something about yourself I couldn't possibly know.
Oh my goodness, it's it's one of those things, I suppose, that it's a tough one. Well, I suppose before I started cooking, and before I became a chef, I was very much, as I said, into sports, and sports was a very big part of my life, really, especially growing up in Kerry, where football is a very important part of a young child's upbringing. And I very much got into kind of martial arts when I was younger as well. So I spent 6 years working and training within martial arts, and got a black belt, a first-time black belt within that. And I suppose in a sense, it instilled in me a sense of discipline, a sense of understanding, a sense of perfectionism as well within an arts form that is this martial art, but also kind of looking for it not just as a sport, really, as something that kind of expands you as a person and who you are, and kind of gives you a sense of calm through this understanding of this spirit of an art. It's almost like my trainer at the time was very much into Zen and Buddhism and that kind of way of thinking within martial arts. And I think he kind of sets a part of that within me. And I think there's a certain calmness that I try to keep in me as much as I can, really, from that period of time where, I trained very hard. It was very hard at the time. It's very much a vocational sport, or profession, or a way of thinking, really. Certainly very much like working in the kitchen, I think, as well, which is that kind of vocational aspect. So I think, that kind of cooking and training from my early taekwondo years is probably connected somehow in there a little bit as well. So,
Well, that's actually amazing, and it's funny how there are very similar attributes to kitchens as well. Both are very physically demanding. Both rely on on, I guess, a certain aspect of teen work as well. And
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, and they're both fueled by passion for excellence, and I guess that discipline that you have in the kitchen. It's so interesting that you learn that from your martial arts, because it is a very, it can be a very spiritual sport. So bringing that
Yeah,
into a kitchen can just really get you through difficult
no,
times. Kitchens can be very demanding.
no, they can, absolutely. And that I think in a sense you have to look at that as well, and you can see the whole perspective of how difficult it is running a kitchen. You know, there's a lot of, you know, from the business part of it to the creativity to, you know, it's very difficult. Like I would like to say that I'm able to back training in Taekwondo, but I haven't done Taekwondo for a very long time. Reason being as well, because I understand the nature. Once you get a black belt, you stay as a black belt, and it's difficult for me to walk in as a black belt now, knowing the level and standard that all the black belts, the rest of the black belts are at. You know, so I tried a number of years ago before I started at the Dysart. I spent 6 months getting back into it, and I could definitely feel I was getting close, but it's, you know, it's years and years of focused training that enables you to get to that level. And I think the kitchen is the same, is that you've got to focus on it. You really have to put all your passion, your desire, your everything into it, your being, I suppose. And that's why, like, for me at the moment, that's why I kind of, like, I would like to get back doing some martial art again at some point, maybe, but definitely for the moment, I think the kitchen is where I put my energy. For sure.
Well, if you
Yeah.
have time for it, I don't know if you
Yeah.
feel you
No,
can
exactly.
smash off your feet when you get back.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's not doable for sure. Definitely, but
Well, Ken, thank you
yeah,
so much for your time. It's
yeah,
been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much.
excellent.
And
Thank you. It's been lovely.
so if you guys enjoyed today's interview, as always, please subscribe, rate and review. It helps others find me. You can find Kenneth on Instagram at Kenneth Culhane, and I'm at Posh Nosh Gal.